Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me once again, as always, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's going on is today we're going to do a quick recap of the results of our Game Awards predictions from last week, as well as, favorite showings from the event. And then we're going to dive into a review-heavy episode this week. I'll talk my thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which I finished this week. Cameron's been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals, so he'll talk about that. And then I also sat down and played Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind this week. So, if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So, starting off with the Game Awards predictions, we predicted on 21 different categories. We differed on 10 of them, and on 9 of the ones we differed on, both of us got them completely wrong.
Yeah.
It was a bigger night for Astrobot than either of us were expecting. Senua's Saga won a couple things, I think. Melina Juergens won
Best performance,
and Senua's Saga won Best Audio Design, which makes sense.
Sure.
I still disagree with it because, as I said last week, they really cut back on the things that made the first Senua really interesting design-wise audio, with all the surround sound narrative stuff, when they just kind of streamlined a lot of that. Basically, it ended up being a 1 point differential on the one, that we did differ on, that I got a point on, which was best multiplayer game. You had gone Warhammer, to be contrarian, versus my Helldivers 2 pick. Helldivers 2 did win it, so that ended up earning me an 8th point to your 7 points. A very abysmal showing for either of us out of a 21 possible nominations. By the time we got to... we made the predictions before they narrowed down the player's voice thing, and I certainly had not factored in the fact that all of the gacha games basically put in their game rewards to go and vote for them.
I did not know that.
So yeah, that's why 3 of the 5 finalists were just shitty mobile gacha games. But even there, Black Myth Wukong ended up taking that one because it has a very fervid fan base.
I mean, it makes sense. It was one of the highest grossing selling games on Steam.
Yeah.
And I made a point last week that it has a very strong Chinese contingent.
Sure.
That was able to vote. And so I'm not surprised they won that. I am very impressed by the games that, the categories it did win. Because I don't think it was the strongest game this year, but it is good to see that this is one of the first big, this is the big release coming out of China. This is the first time, kind of that crossing over the greater pond, so to speak. The pond, of course, being between us and Europe, notably England. But then the greater pond going, I would say, is Europe on that point. Or not Europe, Asia on that point. But
in addition there, it won Best Action Game.
Yeah.
Never much against my... it won Games for Impact, which is the weirdest thing I think.
That one I don't understand.
It did not...
As somebody who didn't play it, but hearing you talk about it, I don't know what the impact that game was supposed to have.
It's an environmental game, I guess. It is very much against or pro,
environmentalism. Okay.
I guess.
But that one?
But yeah.
Oh, that's so weird.
Out of the other things that could have won, it strikes me as that's a weird choice. Metaphor Refantasio won a couple things.
Yep.
So shout out to that for art direction and narrative, and I think
best RPG.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
They won best RPG. Yeah. Here's the thing. If we had gone by our personal choices, I would have cleaned up so much harder.
Yeah, our picks versus our predictions. Our predictions are what counted. Basically, us predicting what was going to win versus our personal picks for the categories. Our personal picks for the categories, if Cameron had stuck with those, he would have beat me 11-7.
Yep.
So yeah, shout out to that. Shout out to Baldur's Gate 3 winning for best community supports. That made me very happy. Shout out to that game and the support that they've done this last year for the game.
Hearing from you over the last year, all the support stuff they've done, I'm there's no way they're losing this one.
Yeah.
This is their category to insane. The amount of support, like, oh, we're not going to do DLC. Instead, here's like 8+ patches of consistent features and content that we're just adding to the game.
Here's an epilogue. Here's mod support and continued, support of that mod support. Yeah. Like on 2 separate occasions I went back to the game this year just because of like, oh, new stuff in a patch for me to play. Cool.
I'm totally going back when they put out the next patch.
Yeah. And the next one has crossplay, crossplay and photo modes and new subclasses. Yep.
New subclasses is what's doing it for me. That I'm very excited for. So,
I'll be curious, a year from now on that one, because people are already working on mods that are just going to add new content to the game, like adding new areas using once the mod manager came out, people cracked it like 2 days in or something like that, and basically have a full level builder at their disposal. So people are already putting together little trailers for the little, like, hey, let's do a descent into Avernus and try and, get Karlach's, heart or something.
Dude, that's so sick. This is what true mod support does. This is what happened to Skyrim. The best Skyrim mods were like the reason why they're like, oh, we did an update where we give people player homes. That happened because one of the first things that happened was people built like holds and castles and stuff in mod support. And they're like, people want that. Let's give that to other like console players, basically. Because at that time, mod support wasn't existing for consoles.
Yeah.
All these things existed. And like Larian's taken that torch, which originally started with BioWare with Knights of the Old Republic, led into Skyrim.
The big one I'm thinking of most recently being Fallout London.
Yeah.
Being like a whole expansion in the Fallout 4 engine.
Yep. With the entire quest lines, dialogue.
They got voice actors to come in and do stuff. Yeah.
It's insane. So seeing Larian kind of take that torch and carry it forward has been so great. There's just nobody beating them for support.
Yeah.
Or ongoing game or whatever. Ongoing game is a different one, but
yeah. We were spot on with GTA 6 being the most anticipated and Fallout being the best adaptation for the year. And then Astrobot, won a few awards. Balatro won a few awards. It was up for. Prince of Persia: Lost Crown ended up winning the Innovation and Accessibility Award in like a probably bittersweet moment in the pre-show where, people that used to manage a team that is no longer exists, accepting the award. On
opening act. They changed the name to give it.
I don't give a shit. It's the pre-show.
I mean, I think it's a better app name for it.
But it's just branding. It's a pre-show.
Sure.
I'm not going to give Jeff flowers on pre-show. It was certainly his best Game Awards, but it's a pre-show.
I don't
call it whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Pre-show.
We'll keep going and then.
So those were the awards itself. Again, I won by 1 point in the end. So Cam will at some point owe me Portillo's the next time we go. It also had, obviously some big announcements. Any big standouts for you that you wanted to kind of gush about before we dive into the show proper?
Sure. Well, first, let me say one thing. I don't think this is the best Game Awards they've ever had. I think the first one was still the best one. And that's because everybody got to come up and accept an award. I've never been a fan of the side stage award giving out. I don't care for that. Letting a lot of games win these awards and they never get their flowers, so to speak. That frustrates me. That aside, but for me, it is the second best show they've ever done.
I've not gone back and watched the 2014 Game Awards, so I'm not going to argue extensively on that, but I would be very curious how going back and watching it holds up against anything.
That being said, when it comes to things that stood out to me this show, immediately Witcher 4, seeing Ciri, of course, it's also sad, and this is also going to tie into my next one, which is Intergalactic from Naughty Dog. We talked about it on the tail end of the Daphne Plus Show podcast, but retrofuturism is still one of the coolest things, and I loved how freaking analog everything was in Intergalactic's trailer. The idea of it's everything's RC, RTC. I'm trying to think old TV style,
CRT.
CRT, CRT screens. like really gives it that feel. Like definitely big inspiration from like Cowboy Bebop going on here, which is great. Just really love the tactileness of everything. And also just like, yeah, I love that it's about a game about a bounty hunter going after a bounty. That's what we know so far. Unfortunately, both these games have come under the ire of the anti-woke, anti-DEI crowd. People are complaining that Ciri doesn't look like she's 17 anymore. And has like an adult voice actress.
I'm not interested in giving those people any attention.
Any oxygen.
Air.
I feel you.
Yeah. So fuck them. They're idiots. We can move on.
Sure. Good to move on. But yeah, those are the ones that really shout out to me, like come out to me as like, I'm very excited about. Ciri having like, seemingly having mutations. I brought up, I'm like, man, how are they going to explain that? You're like, she goes through time, Cam. It's not hard. And it's like, yeah, there you go. It's awesome.
Certainly a theory.
Yeah, it's really really fucking good. That we're seeing this next Witcher project. Really can't wait to see what Naughty Dog does with Intergalactic. I really hope that like if they bring the atmosphere, the attention to atmosphere that they brought to The Last of Us Part 2 to this one, I'm like, because I said when that game came out, the audio design, sound design on that game is next level. A lot of that game. When it comes to like the technical aspects of it are some of the best that we still have ever seen in video games. And I can't wait to see what they do to bring that level of like sound design to space. It's weird. I'm normally not like that big on audio design, but knowing that team and knowing their skill level and knowing what they're bringing to the table for this, I can't wait to see what they do with space.
I imagine you probably know more now about the Elden Ring spinoff.
Yes.
Than we did from just the trailer. It very much seeming like it's going to be a roguelite, multiplayer co-op roguelite. What does that one do for you? For
me, I'm a bit frustrated by it, actually, because it's either 1 or 3 players. From what I saw, it's like 1 or 3 players. I did not see any confirmation that it's like has a 2-player mode.
Okay.
Which is weird, I know, but there was something in the interview, and maybe it's the like lost in translation because it was like a late night IGN translated interview. But it looked like it's 1 player, like either you play by yourself or you play with 3 people. I don't know if that's confirmed. If that is confirmed, if that's the case, that's going to make me very frustrated because I don't know why that's a thing. You have to be 1 or 3. Another thing about it is it's very much like this is a spinoff. This is not a sequel. This is not a side project. This is not going to be a game in its own. It is really much more of a, people were comparing from post interviews, people were comparing it to kind of the Bloodborne gauntlets. Mm-hmm. As far as like, yeah, you can like, you're basically
Chalice Dungeon.
The Chalice Dungeon, yeah. Going in, and it's doing that, but at the same time, it's
I hate that me as like the most anti-From person knows that those are Chalice Dungeons. But to my credit, I was sitting next to the Bloodborne team at the very first PSX when they showed off Chalice Dungeons. So I think that's why it's ingrained in my head is like seeing them all with their like Bloodborne shirts on, their dev team shirts, like in the front row of that event, and just being like, oh, cool. I don't want anything to do with that, but good for you all.
So for me, yeah, it looks like it's like Chalice Dungeon mixed with like a timed boss rush element with like a storm kind of moving through. So you basically have to start, apparently you're going to start on like the outside of the area, and you're going to move inwards as you beat more and more bosses until you kind of like come to the center and face like the main boss of that area. That appears to be what is happening and what I've read from interviews and stuff. That's what they've kind of described. There's 8 player classes rather than having like it's not going to be an RPG. The RPG elements are not going to be there. I don't know if there's going to be like a loot system or if it's just the challenge aspect of it. We've yet to see any more details about that, but yeah, I'm relatively like I'm happy for it because obviously we got to see some like classic bosses from prior Dark Souls games in there, including the Unnamed King, which is like one of my favorite bosses from a From Software game. So anything like that, I'm like, okay, this is cool. They're bringing in assets and other things from prior games to make some cool bosses. Clearly, this is not, and like in the director's own words, this is not being directed by Miyazaki. Miyazaki is working on whatever next project he's working on. This is being done as like a side spin-off project by one of the project leads, who's now going to be the director of this game. And he said, I just like, this is the kind of game I like to play. I wanted to make this game, but I also wanted to make it with like our really cool stuff. And so this is not anywhere in the Elden Ring timeline. This is not anywhere in this like story stuff. It's just gonna be about gameplay. So I'm relatively excited for it, just as far as like the aspect of the kind of type of game that it's going to be and kind of like what kind of fun and challenge it could have. But as far as like the exploration and the like adventure that you get from like a Dark Souls or a Elden Ring, that lacking is like definitely muting my excitement for it.
Okay.
So,
yeah, in terms of things that got me hyped, I would say probably Outer Worlds 2, which I'm already like excited for, but just like getting to see more of that. Although I will fully admit that like as I was rewatching the trailer, I was like, I remember virtually nothing from the first Outer Worlds game, except that I had a fun time with it. But it's not the thing where like, oh, side quests are certainly like ingrained in my mind or anything like that. It was just like, oh, this was fun, you know, while playing it. And then Split Fiction has the potential to be a fun one. I really liked It Takes Two, despite my less than love for Joseph Ferris himself. Not a huge fan of the guy, but his team certainly is very creative, and It Takes Two was a lot of fun in a package that tonally did not make sense. Did you ever play It Takes Two?
No, I don't. That's not my style of game. I'm not a fan of it.
So it like Split Fiction seems like it's doing the same kind of thing of like, hey, every level there's going to be new mechanics, and like you and your cop player are going to be working together, but like the gameplay is going to be switching up constantly. That was It Takes Two as well, but It Takes Two was like told against the backdrop of like a dissolving marriage, and was like, this is like awkward and uncomfortable to for between these two characters. If you want, you can watch the entire playthrough of the game between Logan and myself on our YouTube, youtube.com/thatnerdsite. But this appears, at least like this seems like it's going to solve that part of the issue in terms of like, hey, it's authors diving into like their fictional worlds, and they're rivals, but they'll become friends over the course of the thing or something like that. So it's not like this weird like dissolution of a marriage where you like rip apart your child's toy to make her cry as like a concerted effort. It was some weird traumatic stuff in It Takes Two. So Split Fictions looks like it'll be a lot of fun, and then I'm also intrigued by Dispatch.
Dispatch looks really cool.
Animated Telltale style game featuring Aaron Paul, Laura Bailey, and a plethora of other voice actors and various YouTubers and stuff like that. And like it feels like it has like Incredibles vibes in terms of like the bureaucracy of like
heroes
managing superheroes and stuff. And I think there's potentially just going to be a lot of fun there. So
I like the aspect. It's like, oh, you're playing a non-super powered former hero who is like now trying to like get back into the bureau to get back into his mech suit. And I'm like, that's cool. I dig all of that. Mecha Man, love that. Love a lot of that aspect of it. That game also, what is it? Is it Shadow Labyrinth? Yeah, Shadow Labyrinth is another one that came from the Game Awards that I was like, ooh, okay. Apparently it's a tie-in to a Secret Level episode. I haven't watched any of Secret Level yet, so couldn't tell you, but I loved the vibe and aspects of it. It looked really, really cool.
Yeah, it is the Pac-Man level of Secret Level, or the Pac-Man episode of Secret Level, kind of in video game form, because they take some twists and turns with Pac-Man and stuff like that.
Overall, I also want to say, just overall, this is also like just my own bias coming through here. Good showing from Bandai Namco. Like they really took big swings out of this Game Awards with a lot of like announcements and stuff, and also some victories. So,
I'll be very curious what Project Century looks like. It's the new RGG Studios game.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Because they had like the 1-2 punch of like their logo comes up and I'm immediately like, somebody check on Britt Brombacher, aka Blonde Nerd from What's Good Games. because she's probably making lots of screaming noises there in the arena. Then that ends up being like a virtual fighter thing. I'm like, oh, she probably doesn't care about that. But then it comes up again in a classic Japanese style like alleyway or something like that. Doesn't seem like it's directly a Yakuza game, but she still is super high on it, and I'll be interested to see what it is. If it ends up being like, it didn't seem to be, because it didn't have any of the like a Dragon or Yakuza series characters like in like the or the past setting like a Dragon Ishin did or something like that. But maybe it'll be something in that vein where we do see like a 1915 Kazuma Kiryu or Ichiban Kasuga or something like that running around.
It seems extremely violent.
Oh yeah,
which is not
it
not
seems
unlike
like
the other games.
It will very much be in their like action,
Yeah.
throwing fists kind of style of gameplay stuff. But it'll be interesting to see what that one shakes out to be. I tweeted out or skeeted out or whatever Blue Sky is. I said something to the effect of like they're gunning for Insomniac's crown in terms of just like most prolific, like releasing all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
Because they already have their Pirate Yakuza game coming out next year too. So should be a fun year for them. So those are some thoughts on the Game Awards. Anything else before we switch over to Indiana Jones?
Nope, nothing. We're good.
All right. So yes, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This will be a spoiler-free discussion kind of thing. I played through the whole thing this last week, and largely it was just kind of like I was looking for something to play, and enough people said it has like Dishonored vibes to it that I was like, oh, okay. I like Indiana Jones. I like Dishonored a lot, so let's see how this plays. And ultimately, I walk away from it thinking it is a very lesser Dishonored. Like, it does not do Dishonored nearly as well as Dishonored stuff does in terms of like the immersive sim gameplay. But what it lacks for in that department, it obviously makes up for with its Indiana Jones coat of paint. And so it kind of balances out to be a good game. I think it's on our scale, I would give it a 7.5. It is a that good game. Doesn't quite reach great. Has some great moments narrative wise, but a lot of the gameplay just brings it down. There's a lot of like frustrating choices. Admittedly I played like on easy and kind of customized some of the things, but even there, like playing on easy mode, by the time you get late in the game in this, like, this game is clearly designed so much to be like stealth brawler, where like you're sneaking up behind Nazis or fascists in the non-Nazi countries, and you basically like take them out with a punch, or like you grab an object, you grab a sledgehammer, and you sneak up and take them out from behind, kind of thing. If you get discovered, you can, do some fisticuff stuff, or again, with like melee objects, you can, batter people a couple times. But if you ever try and get into like a gunfight with the Nazis, which most of them have guns and will shoot at you from a distance, somehow your bullets do nothing against them.
Oh no.
It has that thing that like a lot of gunplay games have, where it's like, okay, yeah, AKs, obviously you have a big clip, but the bullets don't do a lot of damage, versus like a shotgun that if you get, close range, one shotgun blast will do a pretty good job. Here, it's like, okay, you can pick up a 6-shell shotgun. That's assuming that you pick it up completely full, but if the enemy has fired off a couple rounds at you, it will be missing the rounds that they fired, so you've only got 4 shots now or something like that. Takes 2 rounds to take out anybody of those. Took like a half an AK clip to take out anybody, like especially by the end game. Maybe earlier in the game, but they get 3 or 4 hits on Indy, and Indy is down. So
that's insane.
It is very like misbalanced. And again, this is on like easy mode, or enemies do little damage, or whatever accessibility things I could adjust just because I wanted to just enjoy the story. But there were definitely places where it's like, all right, the only way I can make it through this area is if I do stealth, because if, people get alerted, then I've got 12 people running at me, and
Shooting
three
you.
of them get shots off on me. I don't have time to take out everybody and do anything with it. So gameplay wise, like that, incredibly frustrating. You can level up, like, so one of the mechanics of the game is you find books throughout the world that you can pour like adventure points into, and like, you know, the book will be like, oh, if you acquire this ability, guns will do a little bit more damage, or your whip will be able to, stun an enemy, or completely, incapacitate an unaware enemy or something like that. Or your fists will do more damage, or you get more health, or your heals can be improved. So, like, again, by late game, I've done a lot of the side stuff. I've got a lot of the skills up, and I'm still
Struggling
getting completely
that way.
fucked if I don't just sneak my way through an area, or like take out one or two of the bad guys and then just book it to the checkpoint so that I don't have to worry about everybody anymore. So yeah, annoying in a lot of that regard. But then there's also like, and that I will say that is like also limited because there aren't a lot of like linear areas in the game. There are plenty of areas where it's like it's completely open, and so if like somebody sees you, you can just turn around, run away. Enemies will lose interest in like 5 seconds and then turn back. AI is not good at this game. There's a lot of things have been said about it, but sometimes it doesn't have to be good because it also is, again with the gunshots, seemingly incapable of missing you, even if you're like dodging and weaving or something like that.
Oh,
they will get a beat on you and shoot you.
That sucks.
So yeah, it's like dodging and weaving. Okay, that does you a little bit better in terms of like people trying to get like melee fisticuffs on you stuff. But yeah, combat not fun in this game for the most part, with the exception of the incredible variety of items that you can pick up in the world and just bash over the heads of Nazis. Like,
okay,
just like beating the shit out of Nazis, never not fun, even in a game where the combat mechanics don't feel great. It is still, fun. And there are enough places where it's like, okay, I'm looking around, I see like 7 guys in this encampment. I can probably just go in loud and do some stuff. In some places you might find like, a little a thing that has like a stick of dynamite, and you can use your lighter that you buy, midway through the game, basically light your dynamite and throw it off and just blow people up.
Hell's yeah. Blowing up Nazis, one of my favorite things.
Yeah. So, enough fun on that front. And the story and the performance by Troy Baker, incredible. He does a great job as Indiana Jones. Not only does he nail the voice for 95% of the thing, there are a handful of times where it's like, oh, the Troy Baker is slipping through a little bit.
Sure,
but it's like even when the Troy Baker slips through, it's still like the intention of Indiana Jones and the vibe of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was hoping.
Like
to hear.
an easy front runner for performance of the year next year, I would imagine. So long as people remember, oh, that's right, Indiana Jones wasn't, eligible last year, kind of thing. So yeah, a lot of fun on that regard. And overall, a fun adventure, fun MacGuffins, fun, like they do a good job. It doesn't go as action set piecey as like an Uncharted does, but it's a globetrotting adventure. You start out doing some stuff at the Vatican. There's basically like 3 open zone areas where there's a lot of like side quests and like collectibles to find in each of these areas as you're doing puzzles and sneaking into fascist encampments and collecting stuff and getting your MacGuffins for the adventure and stuff. So yeah, 3 main areas, starting out in the Vatican, and then you eventually go to Giza, and then there's a third place that's kind of like Southeast Asian. I forget if it's Thailand specifically or something like that.
Gotcha. So the tropical areas that I've been seeing on
yeah, like
stuff.
the tropical jungle kind of thing is that most likely that third area, and then they have a few kind of like interstitials where it's like, oh, this is a much more linear section of the game that are also globetrotting, and also, interesting enough and fun. One of the big trailers they showed off, a while back was like in the Himalayas. So there's a moment where you're
That ship that's up there.
a ship that has mysteriously appeared at the top of the Himalayas. Interesting and fun, like explanation for why it's there, how it got there, all that stuff that ties into the bigger mysteries of the game. Tony Todd's character in this, he is a fun antagonist that may or may not kind of be an ally by the end of the game.
Oh, cool. Okay.
As oftentimes happens in indie adventures.
Yeah.
Like
allies turned out to be enemies. Enemies turned out to be allies.
Yeah, he is a protector of the big secret of the game.
Oh, okay.
And enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. Like, both of you don't want this to be in the hands of the Nazis, so
everybody hates Nazis.
So he's a lot of fun in here. And you can't put the Great
Circle in a museum, so it's safe.
Sure. True, and I mean, to that there are the writers reckon with some of the like it belongs in a museum kind of things, where it's like, it belongs in a museum. It doesn't need to be in my museum. And so like in Giza, he hands stuff over to kind of like an ally there in Egypt and basically says like, put it in your museums. You are fully right. I should not be here collecting this stuff and taking it back to America or the British Museum or anything like that. And then similarly, when you get into like the Thailand or the Southeast Asia space, there's a similar vibe, a similar side questy kind of thing of like, I found this thing, and it is a historical artifact, and there's definitely a reckoning, and
sure,
one of the characters specifically calls out Indiana Jones as a grave robber, and he's like, that's not what I do. Like, I'm not that. Like, history should be preserved and protected and unearthed. But I don't want to, disrespect the cultures that I'm kind of in. So it's very much like taking those things that, we weren't socially thinking about 30 years ago when these movies first were coming out, and kind of
40 years ago, right?
40 years ago, for the earliest ones. I was just shying away from how old I am.
Sure.
Even though the first one's older than me, first couple are older than me. But yeah, so the story is certainly grappling with that, and Indiana Jones trying to be better than just another Belloc or something like that.
Well, it's always been that way since the first film, whereas he's like, these things belong in a museum. You should be selling them to billionaires, basically.
Yeah.
So back then, Indiana Jones was seen as the quote unquote good guy. Still, is just our consciousness of like historical pretext and responsibility has evolved since then. So as such, Indiana Jones being that like quote unquote paragon of the good side of grave robbing / the entire reason for archaeologists is like an archaeologist who basically steals for good has always kind of been the thing.
Or it's also very much like it belongs in a museum is going to sound very different to an Egyptian who's lost so much of their culture to a British museum or something like that, to colonialism, than Indiana Jones saying it to the audience or to, an ally of his, something like that.
Well, also when he does stuff, he's also in places that like they don't have, like these are like old lost civilizations. Like what is the kind of like connection to like these things are more nebulous.
Sure.
But in the modern pretext, yes, you don't want to like that definitely makes total sense about like and reconciling who Indiana Jones really is from that like little catchphrase to what it really represents and what it means to be an archaeologist, I think is a cool thing.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, a very fun enough time. While I occasionally would get frustrated in certain sections with like the combat or with being overwhelmed and just not really having like an out or anything like that, or thinking I got like blindsided by enemies that I didn't even know were there or some shit like that. Fun enough time. The puzzles, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, here's like you'll go into like an enemy tent or something like that, and you'll find a couple notes, and like one of the notes will be like, here's a message, and something is kind of like underlined, and it's like, okay, that's clearly the code word. The code word is rose. And then you'll find like another note that's like a key that's like, okay, if it's an R, then here's the number. If it's a O, here's the number. If it's an S, here's the number. If it's an E, here's the number. And then like also in that tent or somewhere nearby will be like a lockbox that has like a code that it's looking for. And it's like, okay, I get those things together. I piece, what I'm looking for and like enter the code. And I had a lot of fun kind of like solving those puzzles. Some of them are as simple and straightforward as that, but then others it is like, oh, you have to actually like read the note to be like, oh, this is referencing something that's across the map in this other area. So I need to go and use this on that chest and, mix and match kind of the resources and reference materials. And, there were times I was pulling out my phone and just kind of like, okay, I'm looking at like the thing on the screen and I'm like making a note on my phone app so that when I go to the key code, I don't have to like go in and like re-pull up all of the stuff, all the materials in my, in the Indiana Jones journal kind of thing.
That's cool.
So yeah, it was fun. Kind of like it gave me a reason to kind of like take my own notes, to try and like unlock some of these chests. And then also some of the they're like secret puzzles, I think, later in the game that are like, throughout the game, you're kind of like finding these random like ancient artifacts, ancient relics around the world. There's like 45 of them in total across the game, and it's like, are these just a collectible or do these actually do something? And you eventually like find places where you can like slot them in, and
cool.
they are pieces of another puzzle somewhere in the world.
That's awesome.
That you can kind of play into, and so yeah, there's a lot of like reward for being thorough and discovering and exploring everything. And if you really want to, so I played again, it not only in like combat stuff was I kind of like lowering the difficulty, but the game very much does like the Assassin's Creed thing that recent games have done, where it's like baseline. You will need to like use your map and use the notes that you find to figure out where you need to go next, for your next objective, and you won't have like little waypoints. I was like, I'm not really like I did that for a little bit, but I was like, there's too much backtracking in here. I just want to know where I need to go. Sure. Rather than like so many of these other areas. That's one of the like. There are a lot of quality of life things that could easily be improved in this game that aren't. Which is another thing that kind of brings it down. Backtracking all over the place, especially if you're trying to like get all the collectibles and stuff, is one of those things. To the game's credit, you'll find money all over the place, and you can use the money to buy like the guides that'll basically like, hey, here's where everything is on this map. Right. For the collectible notes that you can find, or the books that you can find, or the artifacts that you can find, or whatever. Like you can use the money that you're finding across the world to buy those things, and that'll certainly help you like uncover more directly. But yeah, I also was just like, I just want the waypoint. Just like, let me select the quest, and if I'm tracking the quest, I can, you still have to like find the way to get there sometimes, where it's like, okay, it's taking me in that direction, but that's just a big old wall in front of my face. So how do I navigate there? How do I get there? Especially in like some of the like dungeons and catacombsy kind of places. Like, all right, this is like in the far corner of this catacomb that I've already been through, so I've kind of already found like all of the paths around it, but how do I get back there most efficiently, most effectively? Because there is not fast travel beyond. You will find signposts around the world, and you can like travel from signpost to signpost, but you can't travel from just wherever you are to a signpost. So and you obviously have to like unlock the signposts when you come across them, kind of thing. So a lot of times it's just like, I don't know, like I know I need to get somewhere over on that side of the map. I think this location from this signpost will get me closer, and sometimes I just pick wrong. I'm like, nope, I went to the completely other side of the map than where I wanted to be. Oh well, I guess I'll try and find whatever's around here. So yeah, lots of little like just pain points like that, where it's like this I don't know who played this and thought, yeah, this is a fun approach to this. And that comes a lot, especially in like the hand-to-hand combat stuff. And like this again, not without getting into spoilers or anything like that. This game absolutely suffers from the crime that so many games do of like leaving an incredibly bad last taste in your mouth in terms of like, okay, you're making me do something that hasn't been fun throughout this entire game, and now you've also handicapped me in doing that. I saw our friend Barrett compared it to the end of Uncharted 4, and I saw that comparison before playing it, and I was like, I don't know how it's going to do that. And then I played it, and I was like, oh yeah, it kind of did that. Annoying. Uncharted 4 and this at least have like, there's an emotional payoff to the like that moment and the final fight stuff, but it's like, why do you? I just want to feel like a badass as Indiana Jones. Why are you doing this? Who played this and said, yeah, this is a fun way to end our game? People have put 15, 20 hours into this game. Yeah, let's do this to make it to make the last note that they get. It's like, that's why did you think that was a good time? And again, they're far from the only team that has done this, but it was definitely a like, this is not a good last taste in my mouth. Fortunately, like the game, while it doesn't have like a new game plus or anything like that, after you beat the game, you can basically like go back, and throughout the game you can like travel back to previous places. Like the story kind of gets put on pause, and it's basically like, oh, you're back in the Vatican, and you only like, you might now have new things that you've picked up elsewhere, sure, for like exploration and stuff like that. But you're not like progressing the story being back in the Vatican. You're just doing like collectibles cleanup and stuff like that, or solving little mysteries and doing side questy things. So that's fun, fun enough. And like I've gone through, and I after beating the game, I went back and basically like finished the last things in the Vatican. I'm cleaning up Giza stuff now, just as like a thing to do. So yeah, it's a fun enough time. I mean, in the grand scheme of like Indiana Jones things, I would say it's probably between Crusade, it's let's see. I mean, like in my rankings, I want to say it was like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then probably the two newer ones, like it was probably Dial of Destiny and then Crystal Skull, and then at the bottom Temple of Doom, because I do not like that movie. I would say this probably falls somewhere in the middle there. Probably it's not as good as Raiders or Last Crusade. And it has some spots that I think work better than the new movies. So yeah, that's probably where I'd fall at, like in the 3 or 4 category ranking. It takes place after the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark, but before Last Crusade. But it also like it leans into or like doesn't shy away from like the things we know about Indiana Jones. So like when Indiana Jones is talking to like an ally of his, he talks about his father, and the his ally refers to him as Henri or Henry Jones, rather than Indiana, even though we didn't know he was Henry Jones at the time, kind of thing. So yeah, fun. There's early on there was a fun little Easter egg for the Indiana Jones Temple of the Forbidden Eye, which is the ride in Disneyland. I picked up a thing, and it was like, it was just basically like the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, and it had like the imagery from the ride, and I was like, oh, that's a fun little thing to have found for this Disney nerd. And there are probably some references that I didn't pick up, because it feels like it's making some things that were like references to like young Indiana Jones adventures even.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if those were what the references were, but it was like it had the intonation of like you'd find something and Indiana would kind of comment under his breath, "Oh, I wonder what she's been up to," or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And it being like it wasn't talking about like the Temple of Doom lady, so it felt like maybe that was somebody from his past that we've seen elsewhere, kind of thing. So yeah, it was a good enough time. I'll be curious if they plan on doing, follow-ups kind of in this, era. I imagine this is, the first in a series. But I'll be curious to see where they go from here. Because they do set up, like some of the side stuff sets up like interesting threads that the game itself doesn't follow up on, but it also like the game ends, a side quest with an ending, but also leaving something open for more.
Sure.
And so it's like I'm curious if that's going to come back in a future game or something like that. Like there's one in particular, one side quest where I'm thinking where I'm like, oh, Indiana Jones has just kind of created a new rival who has gotten away. And I'll be curious if like that person ends up coming back into play in like a future game or something like that. Because they definitely seem to have that kind of like potential. It was almost like an Incredibles like syndrome moment of like, I've created some kind of thing that's going to come back to haunt me in some time. But yeah, good performances. Obviously high production value stuff. Apart from lackluster combat, I would say, and poor enemy AI. But hey, maybe it's fully just a commentary on the idea that Nazis and fascists are fucking stupid, and so that's why the AI is bad.
They couldn't fathom creating an actual like intelligent Nazi.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Sure.
I believe it.
Those are my Indiana Jones and the Great Circle thoughts. Any questions or anything before we move over to Marvel Rivals?
No, you kind of captured everything that I needed to know. I mean, I've been keeping an eye on this game for a while. Since they kind of put out the trailer. I'm glad to see it's not a. My big fear was based off like that early trailer of like gameplay we got. My big concern for that was like it just did not look good.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of. I guess that's thing I didn't talk about. Like obviously, it's a first person game, but when you like go swinging from your whip or something like that, or when you go climbing a ladder, it cuts out to third person mode. It's like this is weird, and a lot of times very slow in terms of like the animations. It's just like, I this doesn't need to be like the game, and traversal is far slower than it should be. Like if they had sped everything up by 50%, I think I would have, I would not, definitely would not have been mad because Indiana Jones is just too slow as he's ambling around a lot of these areas. But you like it also feels incredibly unnecessary because you get plenty of like seeing Indiana Jones in cutscenes and stuff like that, which like it makes a perfect sense to jump into a third person perspective there for conversations and dialogue and stuff like that, and then just be first person doing wandering around. But also I think the game, I like honestly I think this would have been a better game if it had just been all third person. Like, I don't think first person adds anything to this at all, apart from that's what Wolfenstein and what the Machine Games team has known for a while from the Wolfenstein games and stuff like that. But yeah, if this had all been third person over the shoulder action thing, I guess like they're probably trying to very distinctly not do that, so it doesn't feel like Uncharted or something like that.
Yeah, I think that would be like the at that point it's like, well, why if it doesn't play as good as an Uncharted game, why wouldn't you just play Uncharted, I guess is the question. Yeah. I think first person works well. I like the aspect of that. For me, it is like my concern was just like frame rate looked bad. Like a lot of.
Oh, yeah, I will say, yeah, there were a lot of dips in frame rate and like choppiness beats and stuff like that. I didn't go into adjust or like play around with any of those settings, so maybe I could have switched to like a performance mode or something that would have prioritized frame rate versus what I was playing on just kind of natural. But like even there it was noticeable a handful of times, but never enough to make me be like, oh my god, this is such a nightmare of an experience. But I'm also never gonna be the person, and like unless it dips down to like 10 frames a second where it's like, oh, this is chugging. Like it's like, okay, yeah, couple cutscenes here and there got a little choppy. Didn't like it was like the dialogue, everything's still going and playing at normal time. It was just like I saw a little bit of like frame stuttering.
You saw the seams, so to speak, yeah.
But it was like it lots of stuff's going on behind the scenes or something in a moment, and then it passes and you go back into first person mode and feels fine. Like again, much more egregious for me was just like how slow Indiana Jones is in moving around places or climbing or even trying to like close in on enemies if you are stuck in a fight. It's like, all right, yeah, it's like I've got to kind of run, dash in there, and I'm burning the stamina, which I'm going to also need for the fight itself. So it's like that. This isn't fun. So yeah, it's not a not the most smooth experience, but certainly like it not enough to be like, oh, that dinged a point for it or anything.
Gotcha.
Like that.
Yeah.
It was very much just like it happens here and there, whatever. They're doing a lot, and for as good as a lot of the game looks, didn't bother me.
Okay.
I mean, like there's also a in terms of just cinematic quality, I will say like it is very much like they are aping absolutely the style of Indiana Jones. Like so much so like there are cutscenes where it's like, okay, we're traveling from one area to the next. You see like a montage of what's going on, kind of half transparent as yeah, you see the map and the red, arrow or red line kind of traveling. So you're seeing like, okay, that's the path we're taking, but you're also seeing like what the characters are doing as you're, doing the travels, much like in the game. A lot of the like, here's where we are. Here's announcing that we're in the Vatican or that we're in Giza, and it's like the font treatment from the classic movies kind of popping out there.
Sure.
The game, like maybe the lightest of spoilers, but it's also the very beginning of the game, is basically you reliving the dream, or you find out Indiana Jones is asleep, so he is dreaming about the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it is you're going in, you're doing that the ball rolling Temple of the Golden Idol or whatever it is, and they've done a really good job of like recreating that, and you've got like your Zapito Alfred Molina character that's there with you. You can do a little bit more like adventuring and kind of exploration in the area if you want, but that also led to like one of the first things I thought as I was playing this game was like, this is over designed in terms of the tutorial area of doing that dungeon. Okay, before I even get to the temple there, I walk through 5 minutes of jungle that could have been 30 seconds of jungle.
Sure.
And it's just like, why did you need this much space? Like it did not need to be this at all. Could have been so much less than this and would have been better paced, would have been a better like start to the thing. And there were a few other places like that where it's like you've ground the pace and momentum to a halt just because you've made an area so big in a way that you probably didn't need to. That like cool, and shout out to giving those designers work. I hope you keep having them have work for a while and don't just lay them off now that the game's out. But yeah, there were a lot of places like this didn't need to be as big as this is. This didn't need to be as as yeah. I mean, in most places it was like it was. And I had the same criticisms of like Last of Us Part 2, where it's like this game would have been a tighter, better experience if I didn't have as much downtime traveling from place to place.
Sure.
Where nothing else is happening. I'm just walking for long periods of this game. That's not fun. Like that's not the most engaging experience. And like I feel that in the Vatican, in the open zone areas where it's like, especially because you can't fast travel everywhere, there's a lot of dead space between points of interest that you're just kind of like, all right, I'm just walking slowly for a little bit across the Giza desert. All right, I'll get to that checkpoint in 2 minutes, I guess, and just kind of like make my way there.
It's the difference between an action game and the immersive sim elements. It sounds like really coming into conflict for you.
I would say that like the highlights of this game tend to be the very close quarters, like linear pieces compared to the wide open expanses where I've got to go from like this dig site to this village, and I'll see maybe 2 or 3 enemies that I can choose to fight on my way there, or maybe there's like a few hidden secrets kind of off the beaten path on my way from point A to point B. But for the most part, once I've done those things once and still have to go back from point B to point A and back and forth 2 or 3 more times over the course of this game, there's nothing else for me to find in between. So you're just kind of penalizing me for having already found the things.
Instead of one area ending, you then get moved over to the next area. There's that in-between corridor that feels unnecessary. I get that. Okay, cool.
Yep. So those are my Indiana Jones and the Great Circle thoughts. It certainly fared better than I thought it would, based on like kind of some of the early reviews I thought, as well as like some of the early like trailers I had seen. At the same point, I'm glad I paid $20 on renewing my Game Pass subscription for this month and have already unsubscribed to let it lapse. You know, I'm glad I did that rather than pay $70 for this. I have no plans on like picking it back up or picking it up again when it comes to PlayStation next year just to get the platinum for it or something like that. So yeah, it's like, and to that point, like, hey, if you are like this, that I would say that is the way to play this game, is like drop a month of Game Pass, play it on Game Pass, and then you're done with the game. You had a good enough time. Doesn't need to be a full, I mean, like, obviously the team wants it to be a full paid experience kind of thing, but if you're on a budget, play it as budget as you want, as budget as you can. Or, you know, if it eventually comes to, I can't imagine it'll come to a PlayStation Plus, but if it did somehow or something like that, or if it, you know, if it's on Steam sale or something down the line, sure, pick it up there. But yeah, I was glad I didn't drop a full $70 to play this game. I would have been a little bit more disappointed if I had. Mm-hmm. So those are my Indiana Jones and the Great Circle thoughts. So we'll throw it over to you, Cam, for some Marvel Rivals. How you been doing in Marvel Rivals? Have you been playing a wide variety of characters, or are you kind of like sticking to a few kind of primary mains?
Yeah, so Marvel Rivals, of course, is the free-to-play Marvel Overwatch clone. I will say just up front that I have put in...
You put in a buttload of time.
Yeah.
When we were talking about it the other day, where you were like levels ahead of everybody else kind of on your friends list.
As of this moment of recording, I am currently level 24.
The downside of unemployment.
Yeah, the downside of unemployment on that one. I'm level 24. It's been out for a week. So a week and a half, maybe. I have done every single major challenge in the ongoing event, and I'm on the last tier of the battle pass. I have played an exorbitant amount of Marvel Rivals. I am super hooked on this game. Sure. It's incredible. In my opinion, it's better than launch Overwatch, like Overwatch 1 when it launched, and it's better in spades than Overwatch 2. For almost, I would say, the entirety of Overwatch 2. It's been better than that. First off, the opening characters where they're like, hey, we're going to have like 8 support characters called strategists in their terms. We're going to have like 8 vanguards or tanks. And then we're going to have like 16 DPS characters called brawlers in this game. Or duelists, sorry. Duelists or brawlers. One of the two.
Duelist is what I've seen.
Duelist, yeah, it's duelist. They are... Every single hero is broken. And what I mean by that is the tool set...
There are exploits for everybody.
Not exploits, just like every character feels overpowered if you play them right.
Gotcha.
No, and that's kind of like the fun thing about it. They're like, instead of making sure everybody's balanced and everybody has a similar toolkit, and it's like, whatever, it's like, no. If you want to, you can be like, you can have Venom, who's a Vanguard tank. You can have Penny Parker, who's a Vanguard tank. And you can have Spider-Man. And Venom, and this is where the team aspect of it comes into and where like that can really change up something. Mm-hmm. Normally, Penny and Spider-Man have just their basic abilities. Throwing out webs, like brawling abilities, etc. For Spider-Man. Penny has more of like laying down landmines and stuff like that for people to trip over, as well as like doing some like other stuff that's way more detailed than you care to know. I like playing Penny a lot. I also got the free Venom Penny. Like basically it's the VEN #M, which is in Penny's in like the Spider Apocalypse or whatever, Spider-Man Armageddon, like Spider-Geddon, whatever limited series there was for the greater Spider-Man universe in tie-in to the in celebration of Into the Spider-Verse back when it came out. Penny Parker had basically they introduced the quote-unquote Venom version of Penny Parker's in her universe. And so that is one of her mechs that you can have as a skin. I have that. I love it. It's so cool. There's that, but what happens is because Venom basically gives both of them a symbiote, you can have a special move that only is available if Venom is active on your team, where you will basically shoot out into you'll be surrounded by your symbiote and just massive spikes of symbiote spikes just coming out and just doing damage in a 360 around you. Mm-hmm. It's great if you're Spider-Man because you get caught in the back of the enemy's back line. And he does that to try to get out of there. And also if you're out of cooldowns, that's a good way of giving you some space for your cooldowns to come down so you can get out. For Penny, it's great if you're swarmed as a tank and they're coming at you. You can hit that instead. If they kill your healer and you need to wait till somebody comes back to help you. A great way to do that. That's that. On the flip side of that, you have Magneto and Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch gives Magneto a additional ability that is a massive metal chaos sword that does tons of damage. Other than that, that's an ability that is locked out. Then you have other abilities which are Rocket Raccoon. His team-up abilities are not with other Guardians. His team-up abilities he has one that teams up with Groot where he can get on top of Groot. Mm-hmm. Jeff the Shark, if you've ever seen anything from Marvel Rivals recently, Jeff the Shark is still in the hearts of everybody.
Jeff the Shark is the one that I see as being the most OP based on what comes across my feeds, and just in terms of he eats everybody, then goes off the map and kills everybody.
He Kirby's it. He Smash Brother Kirby's it.
Does the sacrifice play to just kill everybody?
Doesn't have to, because if you don't have anybody who can float or flight or get away, you just have to spit him off.
Yeah.
But a true Jeff main will go off as with him as well.
Sure. But one of the other broken pairings that I've seen was Rocket with Winter Soldier, because it basically makes Winter Soldier not have to reload. I don't remember if that was you telling me that.
Yeah, already, I told you that
because I just saw that also coming across my feed.
That also works for the Punisher.
Yeah.
So if you have Winter Soldier and Punisher, you choose Rocket as a support, like a strat character. He puts down he has a triangle ability. He puts down basically an ammo generator, and all of a sudden Winter Soldier and Punisher never have to reload. And it's only for a small amount of time, but it's extremely broken in the moment. Mm-hmm. Especially because Winter Soldier already has his reload reset if you use one of his other abilities. And so it's super broken, but only for a short period of time. But it really hurts for Punisher though, because Punisher has if people are launching at you and you're being swarmed as Punisher, Rocket puts that down. You switch over to the shotgun mode for Punisher, for his gun, and that is insane amounts of damage just belted out of there. It's crazy. It's great. So you have that, but then you also have Iron Fist and Luna, who is a very niche character. She was part of the Agents of Atlas, kind of she was the kind of Korean character that they introduced years ago as part of an effort to be more basically the Agents of Atlas was to appeal towards an actual Asian population of in Asia. So Swordmaster, who is now he's one of the Iron Fists now. He started off being that. It was led by Sunfire from X-Men. It was its whole thing. It was pretty successful for what it did, but it's since lapsed and she's kind of gone back into niche history. They brought her in and now she is doing that. She has as Agents of Atlas thing with Iron Fist, who was Swordmaster before, where basically he adds damage and amplification to all of her abilities by infusing her with chi or ki. Awesome stuff going on for all of that. Maps are pretty limited right now, to a point where it's also really weird. Map spawning or the map rotation is seemingly broken because I haven't played on Klatar, which is the symbiote planet, in regular modes outside of practice mode. in like 3 days. It's just not coming up. The Hydra base comes up every once in a while, but it's I'm either on Isgard, which is like Asgard but different, or the like Space Empire Wakanda, which just means nothing to you, but it's the alternative timeline stuff. This is like a crossing over universes and stuff like that. That's really cool. So even then, if you get like one of your characters that you're playing and you're like, okay, cool, they might not be from the shared universe, like from another character, like Captain in this game and Bucky in this game are not from the same universe, but they have a familiarity with them in that. One of my favorite interactions is actually between the Punisher and Winter Soldier, where the Punisher goes, "I'm a big fan of your work." And Winter Soldier outright says, like, if you're referring to my assassination work, nobody should be a fan of that. Like, it was like, I was like all that stuff. And Punisher's like, listen, you're totally fine. Like, I'm not going to hate on you for worshiping the red, white, and blue Boy Scout, but so like, don't hate on me for admiring your work. And it's just weird and like oof, like that is like not a great interaction, but it's in character with the Punisher and Winter Soldier. So they're staying true to like a lot of even though they may not be the exact characters from comics or movies or games or whatever, they are picking up the vibe of it very greatly. One of the cool things going on is part of the story is that basically Doom and like another Doom from an opposite timeline are fighting each other as gods basically, and that's caused this time schism. That's why you got anime girl Galactus as like trying to put things back together. And so like you have these different areas are dealing with different time schism stuff that is just very cool. And by the way, the lore in this game is nuts. Every single character has a 3-section story that is basically like a page and a half of story. If you want to read through it, it's just kept in its own area. If you want to engage with it, you can. It's very, very cool. One of the more fascinating ones is the Hydra base seems to be tied into like a kraken, like a kraken from like mythology is somewhere tied into that going on. And basically kind of the promises is as the game ages and goes on, levels will change and other aspects will change based on kind of this evolving story as that's going forward. And if you're wondering like, hey, how much have you actually played? Each of there's been 4 of them so far for each of the 4 levels. Each of those 4 levels has like 3 challenges on it or 3 challenges related to it. I have done all of them. So I've played a lot of different characters because I had to do it for those challenges. I played as Captain America, Warlock, Adam Warlock, etc. Like I play every range of like either tank, DPS, or heals. Heals, I really love playing Cloak and Dagger. But I stay Dagger most of the time because she throws out light daggers. Yeah, that heal your allies and hurt your opponents. And if your ally and opponent are in the same space, it heals your ally while also hurting your opponent. Great. You can also throw out like a shield wall, but instead of it being a shield, it heals everybody that gets caught up in it that's on your team. And then you can throw down like a bubble that heals everybody in it. And that's the one for like to heal yourself as well. And that's great. I love that. Cloak, he has like a damage beam basically that if you're like within range of it, you just get constant damage on you. And then he throws out his wall that he throws out is actually a blind wall. So if you hit enemies with that, they're blinded for a period of time. And they can't see anything. And it's just you're in darkness. Punisher has his alt fire is actually a smoke grenade that because Punisher is on the field, you and your teammates can actually see the outlines of where people are. And if Punisher has marked them, sees them and they leave the area, you see them leave the air, like through the walls a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's just very cool. Hawkeye is awesome. He has his special ability lets him basically do bullet time. So you see like the kind of like after images as people move, but then you shoot their after image that they left behind and it does damage. So he can get crazy headshots. It's awesome. Overall, an amazing time, amazing characters. I don't think there's a badly designed character. They each, like I mentioned earlier, have their own ways of being extremely effective. And depending on like counter picks and stuff, for example, Punisher, hard counter pick against Punisher is Captain America. Funny enough, based on like the interaction I told you between Winter Soldier and Punisher, because Captain America's shield, when he puts it up, it will ricochet bullets from the Punisher. it ricochets projectiles anyway, but the Punisher's assault rifle shoots so many bullets that if you are like up front or like you shotgun him with the shield up, it does crazy amounts of damage to the Punisher back, or to your allies around you. I kind of like semi-team wiped my team by like launching like a bunch of like firing on Captain America with his shield up because I didn't know about that. But like, yeah, it happens. Really, really cool stuff. Star-Lord is awesome because it's like, hey, what if we did Tracer, but instead of like blinking in time, we let him do like a weird, like cool, like distortion flip or like rocket boots to like boost him around. Really awesome stuff overall. Every single character's cool. My favorite team up is whether you're Rocket or Jeff, because they can get on top of Groot. And the great cool thing about that is you're launching heals while you're on top of Groot. So you're auto healing Groot as you're doing this. And Jeff does like a spray of heals. Or it can also drop bubbles. So it's easy heals on your main tank. I have not played Groot ever, which was weird. I should probably pick him up and play him at some point. But overall, having a fantastic time. I'm loving every aspect of this game, whether it's the lore that they're building into it, which is just really cool comic book level, like, you know, comic book level storytelling that they're doing with this. That's like good comic book storytelling. I would say like writing wise, this is probably one of the best quote unquote crossover events that they've ever had. It's up there. I think overall it's super fun. And also the environmental storytelling of as you're going through the map and like delivering a payload or trying to capture territory, doing King of the Hill stuff. The environmental storytelling that it's doing in that is also very, very cool. But also it doesn't overstay its welcome. When you start a level, it tells you kind of like the summary in the bottom and subtitles, like what the story of this level is. And honestly, you have to do it a couple of times to be able to read all of it. Even me, I read incredibly fast. It does not overstay its welcome. It's like it's basically based on how quickly you load into the map.
Sure. And
so it never overstays its welcome, and it's fun for repeat viewing because it's like, okay, where did I leave off? Okay, that's what happened. Okay, cool.
All right.
Tokyo 2099 is in there, by the way, and that one is very cool.
What 2099?
Tokyo 2099.
Okay.
Which is like, so it's like a lot of it is Spider themed because it's based off of, you know, Spider-Man 2099 stuff. Sure. But it's Tokyo themed because that's like where Penny's from. So awesome stuff.
Cool. What are dream characters that you would want to see kind of pulled in that aren't in there already?
I'm going to be upfront here. We got to get either Deadpool or Gwenpool or both in there. Because they have a lot of tie-ins with Jeff the Shark, and I need them both to be able to access a Jeff the Shark like team-up ability. It's needed. Jeff the Shark also, I'm also going to put out there, even though I don't play main Jeff the Shark, the love I have for Jeff the Shark is insane. He's the most adorable little guy. I literally on TikTok as I'm going through and I see like people are posting stills from the like limited comic, like online digital comic series that Jeff was debuted in. Mm-hmm. And was kind of, well, he debuted in Deadpool. But basically had his own like spinoff that's like, he's part of the Avengers, but he's like the Avengers pet. So like, this is what's happening with that. And it's like him with Kate Bishop and Gwenpool and stuff like that. And it's like the daily adventures of Jeff. And it has like just the best stuff. I tag Snowbike Mike in it because I know how much he loves Jeff. So he'll see that.
I feel like I saw John Bailey is the voice of Jeff.
Yes, he is the epic trailer guy.
Epic voice guy. Yeah.
Epic voice he's the voice of Jeff, and he's amazing. Mm-hmm. His Jeff is so adorable because Jeff also has a version where Jeff sings the theme song, but it's like like that kind of like mouth noises, but instead it's perfect pitch to the T on music wise, and it's the most adorable thing. Like I'm okay if like, hey, let's swap out the music so I can hear the Jeff track for that. That's how much I love it. It's the crossover of something being extremely dangerous, but also very, very cute. Mm-hmm. If you told me, hey, a land shark, I'm like, that sounds horrifying. But then you see Jeff, and it's like he's just a little guy, you know? He's just a little guy. You know?
Plus, he's got like one of his outfits is him in a dolphin costume.
Yep. So that comes from one of the comic things that he did. So things. Well, that one was blue. This one they made it pink. Yeah. To make it pop more. And I'm like, love it. You love to see it. It's perfect. He's perfect. There's nothing more perfect than Jeff the Shark. Granted, I also I've unlocked the Swordmaster outfit for Iron Fist. So like that's really cool. Like so, a lot of these alternate outfits also are in line with comics or completely original. Very cool. Doctor Strange has one where like from the comics where he becomes the god of magic, like the Norse god of magic, basically. After Odin dies, and that's one of the skins you get as part of the battle pass. You get like Thunderbolt's Punisher as part of it. You get like Cosmic Empress or Cosmic Queen, Hela. Mantis has like a really cool one as well. Like all really awesome skins that are just like debuting for the first battle pass. And then overall, just like the additional skins, they have a bunch of movie tie-ins, MCU tie-ins.
I've seen the Scarlet Witch. I've seen Spider-Man. Those
No Way Home.
Those tie-ins. Yeah.
Yep. He has the like magic bracelet things from No Way Home. And there's like an emote tied to those as well. So like, emotes, like every character has minimum 3 skins, 3 emotes, 3 sprays right from the get-go. Some of them have more because you have like the Guardians. The Guardians all have like quote unquote movie accurate versions of their characters. You saw Scarlet Witch. But that means like a much more Chris Evans inspired Peter Quill for Star-Lord.
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt. What did I say?
Chris Evans.
Oh, sorry. Chris Pratt.
Wrong Chris.
And yeah, there's just going to be more of those movie collabs as they come through. And then there's like, specifically like cool outfits. Magneto has one that is like the 1990s inspired, like, or the classic 80s/1990s Magneto outfit. That is different from his regular one. One of the cooler ones is too, like some of them are completely original. And yeah, overall, like I think that it's doing extremely well. Obviously it has over like 20 million players by last time I heard. Like it's killing it. It's a free to play game, so it's making its money off of its battle pass and outfits and stuff. So those are a little pricey. Like I would not imagine you would be able to easily get any of those outfits from just playing the game free to play.
Yeah, I've seen people like crunching the numbers on a lot of that stuff. For the battle pass itself, they're doing the thing where it's like, hey, this battle pass never expires. So like don't like you can always, put your energy towards it. Even, if you come back in, 3 months or something like that, it'll still be there. Cool.
Yep. So if you are building up that chronomium currency over time and you're like, I don't really care for like some of these battle pass ones, just wait for the next one, like hoard it. And then the moment it comes out, also interesting enough, instead of doing it where like you have like to get the main like skins, you have to unlock everything on that page. But if you don't want those skins, you only have to spend a lesser amount on each page to get to the next tier. So they are limiting on that where you can't just like skip forward 6 tiers or whatever to do it like you can in Fortnite. Mm-hmm. But you do have, so you'd have to do that, but you don't have, like I've been doing it because I have all the time and I've been playing this pretty much. I have to limit to only like 1 to 3 hour sessions because my PS5 burns too hot. That it heats up the room that I'm in. And I noticed that because the floor fan that my parents have in that room tells me what the temperature of the room is. And I'm like, when I start getting into like the 80s, it's like, oof, gotta take a break. So I think that's also helped that I haven't gotten burned out on it yet because I've been taking these very frequent breaks because of that.
All right. Cool. Any final thoughts there on Marvel Rivals for you? Are you playing? I imagine you're playing pretty much like solo and matching with randos.
I have not played with any friends yet, which I need to because one of the things that so there is like an achievement system that also unlocks other rewards for you, and those are also tied into like team up abilities, like I said, the things they do to incentivize you to play more than just one type of character, is awesome, especially because it's also tied to getting like free currency for the game.
As somebody who, on multiple occasions, would boot up, I did it in here. I would boot up Fortnite on my PS5 on this screen and Fortnite on PC on this screen with like 2 separate accounts, and like it was like my account and the Trevor Trove account or something like that. Or actually, I think it might be that Nerdy Site.
That Nerdy Site one, yeah.
And I would just kind of like do duos, and we would just drop somewhere completely random and basically just hide from everybody until it was like, all right, you're now one of the top 10 teams. Cool. Got that, achievement done. I'm gonna let the other one die in the storm, and I'll see if I have any luck just doing solo. I'd basically be like controlling both players to game the system for a handful of those kinds of rewards.
I feel bad because Fortnite has a really great like this current season is really, and like this current like battle pass round is extremely good. But I have not gone back to it since like the first couple times that I played it because I only played it because Marvel Rivals was installing.
Yeah.
And after that it was installed, it's just been Marvel Rivals. Remind me, I do have Veilguard out in my car.
Good to know.
Because I'm like at this point, I'm not coming back to it before the end of the year.
Sure.
Might as well get it back to you. It's not happening. Marvel Rivals has like consumed all my interest in like, I want to play a video game. Marvel Rivals.
That just reminded me, just very quickly, Astrobot released like a holiday level.
That's great.
Very fun. It's got like 7 more little bots, including some of the like ones that were notably missing from the base game, where it's like, hey, there we go. They were a nice little Christmas present. That was fun.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't expect, and yeah, it was like if you wanted it, you'd have to borrow.
Listen, I'm not saying Marvel Rivals is going to shoot to number 1 on my list for Game of the Year.
That was the last thing I was going to ask is like how quickly is this climbing up your ranks in Game of the Year stuff? So
quickly, easily top 10, maybe top 5. Like it's going to be in my Game of the Year list now, like without a doubt. Like no way it's being left off. Where it ends up is like if it had a PvE mode, if it had a PvE story mode, I'm letting you know right now, it would probably be my Game of the Year. It's so fucking good.
That's the thing I always like. It was the thing that I was like, I'll come check out Overwatch 2 when there's PvE because I have zero interest in jumping in and doing PvP stuff. And so that's another thing like with this one. It's like, it's disappointing because I'm like, I would like love to jump in and do PvE stuff with these characters and get a feel for like the mechanics of everything, but I don't take any pleasure or joy from multiplayer PvP stuff. So
the fact that story mode is very like the story of everything is very ancillary off to the side is great for people like me, where I lap that stuff up. Like I'm like a dog at a water bowl. I will just lap that up.
Yeah.
So
last question I have for you. Who is the fan base thirstiest for?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to be out there. I'm not seeing a lot of thirst right now. There's a lot of love for Jeff the Shark has stolen the show.
Okay.
For most people. He has stolen everyone's hearts.
It's not horny vibes though. It's just, he must be protected at all costs.
Yes, kind of it is. Or you hate him with every inch of your, like every like ounce of your body because
you've been sucked up and thrown off a cliff.
Yeah. See, as somebody who like, the only time I've ever had a problem with it is because Jeff doesn't just consume his enemies, he also consumes his allies.
Sure.
When I get consumed, when I'm on like a roll by my team, like I'm killing people, I'm Iron Fist, I'm taking out 3 people. My teammate Jeff the Shark comes up, swallows me up with like the other 3 teammates that are left on the map. And I'm like, cool, now spit me out. Spit me out, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, spit me out. Jeff. Can
Jeff choose who he spits out?
Yes.
Oh, that's
one of your triggers will either spit out, like left trigger spits out enemies, right trigger spits out allies.
Gotcha.
That's how it's coded in it. Jeffs sometimes get excited and they go over without thinking about it.
Sure, they're not paying attention.
The worst was when that happened to me and I was like on a roll and what I'm telling you about, he spit us all out.
Yeah.
And I was spit out just far enough that my kind of like I didn't have my triple jumps back yet and everything to like get back to the
I wonder if there's like one of those like play of the games out there of like somebody gets the play of the game and like in the clip they have their cool badass moment and it basically is wrapping up with Jeff eating them and throwing them out.
I've seen it happen on MVP clips.
Yeah.
Think about not MVP clips because they don't do an MVP clip. They tell you who the MVP is and then afterwards you can go to select that person and see the highlight that it's chosen to show why they're the MVP. Those highlights are very long and don't always like leave you in the best light. As an Iron Fist, I've taken out 4 enemies in just not even using my ultimate ability, just doing my basic stuff, taking out 4 guys. And then I just get like one-shotted hard by the rest of the team. And so it's like, hey, this is when he got 4 or 5 kills on part of like a 14 kill streak. And then he gets like, I get wiped out like a bitch hard. Or it ends with me doing all this cool. Jeff swallows me up solo just to take me out. True. Like, respect on the Jeff, but also that was my highlight. Why is my highlight not ending before Jeff gets me?
Yeah.
So they're a little long in the tooth, for sure. Also, sometimes you get MVP and you're like, cool, it's my highlight. And one of them was like, I was Cloak and Dagger.
It's like, that wasn't the coolest thing I did in the game.
There's one where it's literally me just like, I heal a couple people and then I like, incidentally, I was assisting like 4 kills or 5 kills. I'm like, that really wasn't my highlight, but okay. Because my teammates weren't even low on health. I was just doing the spamming the heal.
How is the game doing? I said the horniest thing was going to be my last question, but you've sparked another question. How's the game and the ecosystem doing with like cheating? Because I know that's always an issue with these kinds of games. Here's the deal. I've seen clips already of like
exploiting exploits. Yeah.
Like somebody watching like a replay from a match and being like, "Oh, this is clearly like a bot or something doing like aim stuff."
Oh,
and
aim
it wasn't
body?
doing it like it wasn't doing it great. But it was like very clearly like you can't fire from like one thing to another thing with that much precision naturally.
Sure.
Even though it wasn't like aiming in the right places to like get the kills or like it was always like just off of an enemy or something like that.
So some heroes do have like lock-ons. So Iron Fist, Cloak and Dagger, some of them do have like lock-ons where if you are over an enemy, it will like do a quick lock-on while you're firing, basically.
This was like included bits of like doing you mentioned like if you have Punisher on your team, you can see like the outline of a character between walls. This was locked on somebody and trying to shoot them through a wall.
Oh, then yeah, no. Yeah. Well, this is also where it kicks in. There's destructible walls. And so if somebody's shooting through a wall, it could be the last hit and the bullet goes through.
It didn't seem to be.
If it didn't seem to be, that's fine.
It very much seemed to be like, oh yeah, this looks like an aimbot.
It probably is. Crossplay is automatically enabled. So I've been playing with PC people, which by the way, as a console player who's playing Iron Fist right now and just wasting PC like hit scanners right now, it's like the greatest joy in the world. Not as cool as if you're Spider-Man. Spider-Man's harder to control and like his combos are deadly. He can 2-tap somebody. But you have to be perfect at it. Like you have to line it up just perfect.
And I heard that he's another one, like, or that's another benefit of like him partnering with Venom is his stuff is so beefed up with Venom that he's even more deadly.
Yep.
But yeah, tough to control and
manage. Super tough. Venom is, you would think Venom would have he'd be more melee, like attack with his fists and stuff, but he doesn't. He attacks with symbiote like tentacle spikes that come out of his back and like strike people. And it's interesting because it is much more of like a ranged melee, like mid-range melee move. And so sometimes it is like, oh, I thought I was far enough away from that to not get hit by it. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, it came through a wall at me. Like stuff like that, that's like kind of like frustrating, but also I'm also going to put up there, like I have not encountered a lot of lag, but I have like seen it be like when it hits, it is hit hard.
Sure.
So like that does exist there as well. I'm also playing on Wi-Fi right now, so like that's not the best either. So like I noticed that like, oh, I actually died back because also you see the angle of where people were like who killed you, what was their look at it, and I'm like, oh, they killed me like 3 seconds before, or like a second or two before. So I thought I got behind a wall and got to safety, but actually game recognizes game. You got me before I got behind the wall. That's just where like my PS5 picked up. So those things, those are real. I do like that they do show you the like the POV of the person who killed you, because that does also help like figure out, this is why I like it, where some people are hiding.
Sure, like where you're finding campers.
Yep. Campers aren't as like good, but I will say, Scarlet, like people are like, oh, the Jeff. There's like, nah, for me it's Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch's attack is way too long, goes out farther than Cloak and Dagger or Cloak's ability does. It's the same kind of damage type. Hers goes out way longer and is way more painful and hurts and kills way faster. It sucks. I don't care for it. But at the same time, she's very, very squishy. She's very, she has good escapes, and she has 2 charges of it, which I also have a thing about, but it's cool. I'm all right with it. I think it should be just 1. like one time to do it, and then it has to go on a cooldown. You shouldn't have 2 charges of that. My personal opinion. But like I said, everybody's busted.
Sure.
Everybody's broken. Iron Fist, when he does his charge up, like his the alt trigger ability, he puts his fists up, and if people shoot you or you get hit by any damage while you're doing that, you get a percentage of that as a now shield. So you can still like now beat the crap out of everybody after like, I love jumping in front of Punishers and doing it because they'll like either shotgun me or like assault rifle me. And I just have this massive shield now, and I just wipe out their entire back line and then just jump away. It's great.
All right. Those are your Marvel Rivals thoughts. Have you played enough that you'd want to put a score on it, or?
Yes, I have. I've definitely played enough that I can put a score on it. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. Well, I'm going to take it back a little bit. This is a 9.5.
Okay.
I think that. Nope, scaling it back to a 9.
Okay.
My personal, I love this so much. This is a 10 for me, but as an actual an actual score that I want to give something to give people an idea of like the frame of reference for this is a 9. I think it accomplishes a lot. I think that there are small areas all throughout the game that have room for improvement. This is not a perfect game. It is, I would even go as far as say it's not even that phenomenal of a game. Because it has a lot of little things that need to be improved on. A bigger map rotation probably would be one of them. But I get why. Like they also have like a conquest mode, like that's an arcade mode that like isn't very good in my opinion. Like I don't think it's very good. Its practice AI mode is you join a bunch of players to play against that have AIs on both teams until the room fills up. So if you're trying to do AI training like with bots, there's not, outside of doing like a custom game with bots, there's not an easy way to do an AI bot challenge because your lobby will fill up with people.
Gotcha.
So.
All right. Yeah. So 9, that incredible game on our scale.
Yep.
I've probably said amazing in the past because I think that's what IGN's is or something like that. But cool. All right. So wrapping up with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. For those that are not familiar, this is very much a like throwback arcade brawler multiplayer kind of game, but set basically in like the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You hop in, you select any of the 5 Rangers, the original 5 Rangers, and you are running around Angel Grove, and you're like Rita, a Robo Rita has come back in time to team up with Rita Repulsa to try and like take out the Power Rangers, but she's brought like these time crystals or that basically like the little gimmicky kind of thing that the game has going for it is occasionally in a level some putties will bring out a time crystal, and if you don't destroy it quick enough it will go off and rewind everything back like 15 seconds or something like that.
Okay.
And so like all of the damage you took, you still took, but now the people that you've taken out in the interim are back and you've moved around, you're like repositioned and stuff like that, and you have to just take them out again. But the time crystal still has however much damage you did to it. So that when it comes back out again, it's easier to destroy. And I only ever would go back in time once. And there were a handful of times where I could take out the time crystal before it even like sent things back. So yeah, other than that, a lot of the game is just kind of side scroller action brawler. But then it does switch into like so it's broken out into like episodes a la the TV show. And so it'll be like, okay, you're running through an area side scroller brawler style. And then Rita does the whole like make my creature grow, and whatever monster you've been fighting becomes big. And the game then turns into more like you call the Dinozords, and it becomes more of a Star Fox-like, a la like the not quite N64 style graphics, or I guess Star Fox started on Super Nintendo, so yeah. It's that kind of thing where it's like an on rails thing with the enemy and with various things, but you're now in like a instead of side scroller, you're moving in an on rails kind of path. to fight the enemy. You're collecting power-ups and stuff to like, oh, instead of shooting just regular bullets, I'm shooting missiles now, or I'm shooting double fire, or I'm collecting, coins that power up my special, and I can use my special to do like a devastating attack kind of on the field. So that's kind of like the second phase of gameplay. And then once you get to the end of that level, it turns into the Megazord kind of all powers combine, and it turns into like more of a Rock'em Sock'em Robots kind of like punch out thing of,
Nice.
okay, you're controlling the Zord against them, and you basically have to like close in on them or avoid whatever. You can dodge left or right for if they're shooting stuff at you or if they're taking a swing at you, and you can punch with your left and right fist. And then once you've done enough damage, you power up the sword and you come in and
Nice. Okay.
destroy them. It's like okay, get in, do the slash, and then a quick little button mash, and it plays like the cinematic kind of thing. There's 6 episodes, and there are a couple little deviations on that. Like there's one section of one of the levels where instead of maybe doing the dinosaur like moving through a straightforward path kind of thing, there's one section where it's like, okay, you're on a roller coaster at the amusement park, and there are putties with like balloons in the air, and they're throwing like pies that will explode at you or something like that, and it's another on rails thing that you're basically shooting them down, but it's just a variation of kind of that gameplay. So all of that, incredibly frustrating playing playing single player.
Okay, I was curious about how it stacks up that way.
This is my biggest gripe. Like as somebody who grew up and watched like the early Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, like that was prime viewing for me. I didn't really follow into future iterations of the Power Rangers, but like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I know pretty well. A lot of like the little Easter eggs, they're like little secrets in each of the levels and stuff like that you will find, and a lot of them are nods to like elements of those early episodes, and like I remember one being like a little trolls guy that was something that Rita turned into a big monster, and I was like, oh, I vaguely like I had vague recollections of pretty much like all of the bosses in the game, as well as a whole bunch of the mementos and little secrets that you're finding. So like lots of fun charm for the nostalgia punch on that, but in terms of like the side-scrolling action brawler stuff, this is a game that I feel like, probably works great if you're playing with like, a bunch of friends and you're all filling up the screen and like there would be a trade-off there where like, you're probably going to do way better in terms of like crushing all these enemies, but there's also probably way too much shit going on the screen. Because even with just me running around, there was way too much shit on the screen a lot of the time. But also the game does not feel balanced, even playing again on easy mode for one player. There were plenty of times where I was like, all right, I've just had to replay this entire level 3 times because you have like 3 lives to get to the end, and if you die midway through a level, and you're like, there are definitely areas where it's like they're like the levels have little challenges at the end. It's like S rank for completing it in a certain amount of time, and like how many did you find all the secrets, checkbox, and then there's always one for like no deaths, and it's like half the levels you could do no deaths, that was possible, but then like another half it's like there was no way to make it through that level without dying, because there are certain enemies that are just going to be able to do enough damage to you to fuck you up. So yeah, I very much felt like this game not well balanced for a single solo player at all. Like I was able to get through it, but there were definitely times in a couple of the near end game levels where I was like, fuck it, I think I'm just going to quit here because I'm not having fun.
Shit.
And I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through. But I learned enough of the patterns and enough of like if I just focus on these. I don't need to kill everything in the level. I just need to kill these particular things. So if I don't waste my time trying to do the other things, I'm not going to get hit by whatever damage is coming my way. So, just deal with it. And so, yeah, I was ultimately able to beat the game. It suffers. I mean, one of the biggest gripes I have in terms of like playing this kind of side scroller. I love these side scrollers. I had so much fun with them growing up. But in 2024, I fully realize they were designed to steal my quarters. This game, obviously not stealing my quarters, but still keeps too much of that mentality.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to be as unforgiving, and
especially as a solo experience. And then also, it does not benefit. Like it, much like a lot of my gripes with Indiana Jones, feels slow and clunky, and if you're not right in line on the y-axis with your enemy, you're swinging and doing nothing. And that's incredibly frustrating, especially when a boss comes at you with like the classic, like, I'm gonna shoot an orb of power that you need to deflect back at me, and we do that 3 times or whatever. Oh, okay.
And it's like, well, I'm not even in the right lineup to do this, and it's the very split second of like, here's where the actual hitbox is, and it took me 5 attempts to even manage to hit it back to you once, and now you deflected it back at me. Fuck this.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And like losing entire lives just trying to deal with that mechanic, incredibly infuriating. Because it's like I don't feel like I'm doing this better or worse. I feel like you've just made this unnecessarily difficult for the sake of making it unnecessarily difficult. And it's like, you want to put that in hard mode? Fine, fucking fine. But if I'm playing on easy mode because I just want to play through and enjoy and feel like a badass Power Ranger beating the shit out of all these putties, let me do that and not have such a fucking curse fest in my room screaming. I am not looking forward to you moving back in, because I will have to tone down the egregious swearing I do at my game screens when I'm very pissed off at my games.
I don't know why you would say that, considering the fact like I do that when I lived here.
Yeah, not much. Like, I mean, even in like the worst of Elden Ring times, I would barely hear it through the wall. So I don't think you're doing it nearly as loud as I am in or at least certainly not as loud as I think it feels like I'm
Let me
doing
be very, very clear right now, okay? My parents are not, they're in for celebrating my dad's birthday up in Sparks, Reno with my sister and her family. I have taken full advantage of that while playing Marvel Rivals to be as liberal about my swearing as possible. It does not happen often, but when it does, I cannot, I'm so glad nobody else is here, because the volume at which I am yelling and screaming, like when I yelled at Jeff for taking me off the screen or taking me off the level, and spitting me out, the way that I got heated in that moment, and the way I've gotten heated a couple of times, because some people just demonstrably just as a healer, sometimes your tanks will do the dumbest fucking thing they could possibly do in that moment. And it's your job to keep them alive. And there are moments where it's like, I am a line of sight healer. When you go around the corner, I can't see you. And then you get on chat. Now I'm playing on controller, so I'm not getting into chat, like the chat option. Clearly my tank is, though. He's playing on PC because he is blasting me, being like, where's my heals? Where's my heals? Where's my heals? And luckily the one time that happened, I had a good Samaritan on my team saying, maybe don't leave line of sight. Or don't go into the, up to the enemy base when you have nobody else around you. There's to their spawn point. What is wrong with you? You are just some of these people are just I'll be honest, most of them are probably children.
Sure.
Which is why I don't turn my mic on, because I don't want to swear at children. Also, I just don't want to talk to people.
Yeah.
It has a great ping system, which is good.
There you go.
Easy to use ping system. So.
But yeah, my post that I posted on Blue Sky was in my ongoing thread of like the games I beat this year. It was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Rita's Rewind. Probably a better co-op experience, but even on easy, this wasn't really as a fun a time as it should have been solo. Game just doesn't feel balanced for one player, which led to lots of cursing as I tried to enjoy the Easter eggs from my youth. So yeah, that was it like ultimately a very disappointing approach, especially, you know, when we've had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that came out a year or two ago that was incredible and like did the things that like this genre does really well, but also recognized that, hey, we're in the 2020s. Maybe let's not do some of the things that we did 30 years ago.
It's missing
instead.
that level of like update and polish.
Yeah, it's too slavishly trying to evoke a lot of those, you know, 90s feels. And it could have, you know, done a better job if it had basically also like I'm never a fan of a game in this style that's like, okay, if you want to dash, you have to, you know, do left and hold it, or right and hold. Like you have to push the directional button twice. And also fucking like, hey, no console, nobody that's playing this is playing it on a system that doesn't have an analog stick. So why the fuck aren't you using the analog stick? Why are you, or like you, I mean, it's using the analog stick, but it's only doing 4 directions, or
That's
like,
not right.
Or
that
8,
should be
like,
the case.
barely 8 directions kind of thing. It's like give me a full range of motion.
Arcades had the arcade stick that had a full 8 range motion.
Yeah,
like what's going on here?
Don't make me have to put like, why would I ever want to just slowly walk to an enemy or something like that? Give me fucking always running. Like, it's another one. There's so many quality of life improvements that this game could have that it doesn't, that it was infuriating. And it almost had me like, I didn't look it up, but I was like, God, they've built this in such a like frustrating way. And again, like you have 2 lives, so like, or you have like two restarts, and yeah, like if you're playing on, I guess that's the thing. I played on easy, so the thing that seemed to actually like factually mean was I had unlimited continues. So if I did die, I was like, you know, able to restart the level instead of like, I didn't make it this far, so I guess I got to start a new run or whatever.
Oh no.
So yeah, it was like, but again, you're constantly locked to 3 lives. So it's like, so why is that like a ×2? Like, why the fuck isn't there like, is there a cheat out there that lets me, you know, get that up to a ×9 or something like that? Like the benefit of it just being me was anytime there was health on the map, I got all the health.
Yeah.
Which would have been incredibly more frustrating if, you know, in the classic vein of like, you know, playing 2-player or 3-player or 4-player or something like that. And maybe you can play up to 5 or even 6-player, because spoilers, you'll get after you beat the campaign, you can play as the Green Ranger.
Oh, cool.
Not that it like, I mean, I guess that's another thing. Like, there's no real meaty difference between any of the Rangers, so it's all palette swap. Like, they do have different moves that they're doing, and you'll hear different voice lines and stuff from the characters, but it's all like it's actually in the like the dinosaur sections. It's almost like maybe Kimberly is the most broken because the pterodactyl flies, versus all the others that are stuck on the ground. And that's another thing in those is like, it's infuriating that you're locked into like you're moving the cursor on the screen, which also moves your dinosaur. There's no way to like do those independently of one another. So if I'm like, well, I need to shoot over there to kill that enemy, but that's specifically going to put my line of my character into the line of fire. So I just have to not try and shoot that enemy until whatever, you know, obstacle is out of the way, and then move over. And it's like, I wish it was okay, I can, you know, be over here on the right hand side, but move the cursor over to the left hand side to shoot the thing that I need to shoot on the left. Just lots of like little frustrating things like that, where it's like, there's no good way to try and approach this attacking wise because of the limitations of the mechanics. It's like, cool, yeah, that would have made sense 30 years ago. Doesn't make it fun in 2024. So ultimately, I would give this like a 6, probably, and that's like it's like, an 8 in terms of like fun Mighty Morphin Power Rangers story and idea and nostalgia. Like there's clearly love, like in between episodes. You'll be at the Angel Grove Community Center kind of thing, and like you can go chat with Bulk and Skull, and every time you chat with Bulk and Skull, they're talking about how it was really them who's just saved the day, and they'll refer to whatever enemy you were just facing, and you'll kind of call them out and be like, oh, so you're saying you're the Power Rangers? And while all this is going on, you hear the classic like Bulk and Skull like in like 8-bit style.
Wonderful.
So fun little like touches like that that like there's clearly love and care and attention from fans of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers thrown into this. Even like little like Easter eggy lines, like some of the putties you'll come across are like decked out in like jackets, like leather jackets and like mohawks and stuff, and like, oh, they're punks. And like Kimberly and Billy will be like, I would never do anything like that. Yeah, it seems like so disrespectful. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I have a very vague memory of them being under some spell and being super punk. And so it's very much like a nod to that. So yeah, like super deep cut, fun stuff in here that is very much brought down by frustrating game design choices and elements. So yeah. And again, this is all my personal playing solo. I could very easily see this being a much better experience playing it with co-op, and to its credit, it has online co-op, so you can certainly do that. It's basically local or online co-op. But yeah, I was like, this was a frustrating single player experience, which is what I wanted it to be. It was like, hey, yeah, I'm jumping in and playing, Jason, and again, like the fact that it has like challenges like no death mode, and then like like some of the trophies for it are like complete every challenge. And it's like I can't even complete every easy mode challenge, let alone switching to like some of the trophies like get a 50 hit combo, get a 75 hit combo, and I was like never pop those because I never was able to do that much, never hit that many enemies without without somebody hitting me, or the combo just dropping because of too much time between enemies moving from one screen to the next or something like that. So it was it's like never gonna be like a platinum thing. There was a weird thing where like there was a trophy for popping like complete episode 1, complete episode 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Somehow I beat the game and the complete episode 3 trophy had not popped. So I was like, that's weird. Went back and replayed episode 3 just to pop the trophy. But yeah, like in the like chronology of my trophies, somehow my complete episode 3 trophy popped well after my other ones. So it's like, that's odd, and I don't know what happened there to trigger that, but whatever. It also, going back to like the performance thing, this also has plenty of like slowdown and chugging when there are a lot of things on screen, which is like, yeah, true to the time, but again, like you're a modern game. You're not taxing things on my system that much. You should be a little bit more polished and be able to run at a consistent 30 or 60 frames a second or whatever, and not just slow to a crawl. Yeah, when like 8 putties are on screen. Yeah. So those are my thoughts on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. Last big game of the year that I really, last game of the year I really wanted to slot in before kind of game of the year considerations. I might try and find like 1 or 2 other things still here in the last couple weeks, but that was pretty much the last thing on my list that I'd really had like eyes on of like, oh, I want to check that out. And certainly not the worst thing I played this year, when I slotted it into like my top 20, but
that's fair.
It doesn't, I don't believe it. It didn't come close to cracking the top 10. So, but yeah, they're like it'll be interesting when we do kind of our game of the year stuff, because I was going through, I'm like, I have like good games that I really, really enjoyed this year. And then I feel like much more so than last year, like the bottom half of my list, because I tend to do a top 20, is like, oh, a lot of these are experiences I would have been perfectly fine not having this year. Versus
Is this year you cut it off at just 10?
There was a good chunk of the year where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get to 20 games. Since the year was so front loaded. And then, a lot of the games that came out here in the back half of the year have not been the stellar experiences that I wanted, with exceptions like Metaphor Refantasio, of course, was certainly a standout, and Astrobot, obviously, but yeah, it's like when I do my movie rankings, I tend to be like, okay, here's my ranking of everything, and then I kind of group them in the buckets of like, here were the great ones, here were the good ones, and here are the bad ones that I would never want to see again, kind of in that ranking. Mm-hmm. And I don't tend to do that on the game side of things, but like if I did do it this year, yeah, there's like probably 6 or 7 where I'm like, this really just didn't hit for me. And so there's like, and that doesn't even get into the ones where it's like, this didn't hit the way I wanted it to hit, but it was still fine. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the ones that were like actually really the goods and the greats and stellars and stuff feels like it was much fewer this year compared to last year. But maybe I'm just, because like this year was also I feel like this was the year more than any in recent history where I went back and just like replayed old stuff.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
With like Fallout and Dragon Age Inquisition. I haven't shared it or anything, but like my PlayStation Wrapped, like my most played game this year technically was Metal Gear Solid 5. I think that's a lot because part of there are elements of that game where it's like you're sending off, soldiers on dispatch missions, and the time that they're away only counts while the game is like on. So I was actively just leaving the game on to pass that time. So it's not actually 160 hours of playtime or whatever. But the PlayStation doesn't know that, so that's what they gave me for. So yeah, that ended up being like my most played. But like, yeah, like Dragon Age Inquisition was also on there, and I think Fallout 4 was also on there in terms of like my most played games. So yeah, the fact that like new stuff was not getting my attention for so much of this year it made a very odd year.
I don't even know where to do the PlayStation Wrapped.
That's just wrapup.playstation.com, I think.
Oh, okay.
It launched a few days ago, and like for the first day or two, it was completely broken and didn't work.
Gotcha.
And then they got it working. Then maybe it stopped working again. I don't know. It's been very hit or miss. But yeah. So that is those are my thoughts on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, and that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to share your thoughts on Marvel Rivals and listen to me chat about Indiana Jones and Power Rangers.
It was a lot of fun, a lot of good info.
Indeed. Let's go around the table with our plugs. You can follow Cameron at revcabot.bsky.social. Anything you want to give a shout out to there?
Yes, I do. I want to give a massive shout out to our last episode of that D Plus show. We had a fantastic time going over Skeleton Crew.
It was 2 weeks ago. Dream Productions was.
Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. I meant Dream Productions. I don't know why I said. Oh, because I still have to watch Skeleton Crew. That's why. Oh. Sorry, Dream Productions. We had a really fun time talking about it. It's from the Inside Out universe. If you were a big fan of Inside Out 1 and 2, I think this is a great addition to that universe. We had a fun time talking about it and what we really enjoyed about those episodes. It is also a tight under-hour episode, so enjoy at your leisure.
There you go. You can follow me at trevorjstarkey.bsky.social. In addition to that, I will shout out this coming week's That D Plus show, which is going to be on the Simpsons special episodes that are, I believe, Disney Plus specific this year. Oh, come on, all ye faithful.
Yep.
our friends Ben and Ava were at, I believe, like a screening last night out in there in California because Ava works on The Simpsons as an animating assistant or something.
Writer. She's a writer on The Simpsons.
Is she a writer?
She's a writer on The Simpsons. Yeah.
That doesn't sound like she does animation.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think she's a writer. I'm pretty sure her work is Ava Animations.
Then I might just be completely wrong.
You might just be thinking of somebody else. But anyway, so yeah, that drops on the 17th on Disney Plus. So we will be doing that for this Friday's episode. So stay tuned for that. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest. After Simpsons, we will have one more episode. Trying to remember how we mapped it all out. I guess it's got to be... Yeah, it comes out on the 17th, so the next episode of that D Plus show drops on the 19th? 20th. 20th. So the last episode is going to be... Sorry, because of all the timeline things of this, last episode is going to be the Doctor Who episode, Joy to the World, which drops on Christmas Day. So that's what we have on that Disney Plus to look forward to. So stay tuned for all that.
Yep. Also, quick update. She is an episode coordinator.
There you go. Okay. If you like what you heard, please remember to rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.